It's the Kink Consultant Podcast, where we're turning up the heat on all things kink and dating, relationships, and pop culture. So close the door, plug in your headphones, and let's get down to it. Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of The Kink Consultant. I am extremely excited and a little fangirlish today because I am joined by the infamous, and I do mean infamous, Moxie Rose.
I like infamous.
Good. I'm so glad you leaned into it and you weren't like, oh no, that's not me. It's like, yeah, you fucking are.
Stop it. No, go on.
Literally the creator we all want to be in the kink space. And I can pretty much say that categorically, speaking to people. Yeah. So Moxie is the in-house educator for Shop Kinky, aka, but like also the in-house educator for Mr. Pierre Fashion, who everyone knows for their spicy wrist cuff. You have one on. I have one downstairs. I meant to have it on. Of course, I forgot. I got the Shop Kinky one with the measuring.
Oh, yeah. I'm wearing my Mr. Pierre one, but I have the
measurement clutch because I always need something. For those who are not chronically online or even a little bit online because you're everywhere, Moxie, you are a TikTok and Instagram influencer on top of the in-house educator. And that's kind of like where you got your start. How long ago did you start making content?
My online content honestly began back in 2020 at like the height of COVID lockdown, when I think like TikTok in general kind of got this boom. At this point, I'd already been a sex and kink educator for a number of years, and I'd already been years in the community as like, you know, a personal practitioner. And I started my content just as like a anything and everything kind of window into my life, like, you know, just everybody just showing, you know, what's going on in their life. And I started to see that when I would talk about kink, when I would talk about sex, when I would, you know, eventually when I went back to work after everything started opening back up and I was at a adult toy store showing that kind of stuff, was where the just surge in popularity would come in. I'm like, okay, this is what people want to see, obviously. And then it kind of occurred to me that I had a unique opportunity, that the things that I loved about being an educator that I thought were important, the accessibility of it, the fact-based part of it when it comes to like sex education specifically, that like this needs to be fact-based. It needs to be science-based. It also needs to be inclusive and intersectional. And I was able to give myself a place to do that, that I could reach people who would otherwise not be allowed to get that schooling, who would not have access to it. And so I kind of just leaned into it and it took off like a rocket.
Because it was so authentic. It was one of those things, if you weren't looking for it specifically, you weren't going to come across it until TikTok. It just made it like, bam, right in front of your face. And if it captured you, it did. One of the things I've loved about your content always is that you also inject your personal stories into it. Like, yes, you do the research, but then you and your partner sharing cum, spitting it back and forth. But
the Moxie, it got dubbed as the Moxie.
Oh my God.
Because there's a whole thing to it. It wasn't just that. It was the entire like lead up to it. To the point that even on the Discord that we have, somebody made what looks like a D&D or like a Pokemon card, and it's called the Moxie, and it's a finishing move, and like, oh my God, it was the funniest thing ever. I do love sharing that stuff because it is very, like you said, it's very raw. It's real.
Yes, and it's so de-shamifying for all of the quote unquote weird things people like. And I love the word weird. I've been called weird my whole life, and now it's like my superpower, I feel like. Yeah. So when people feel sad about being quote unquote weird, I'm like, no, that's cool. Look around. We're all weird. So I did not realize it was called the Moxie. That video is like etched in my brain, and I'm like,
I'm not even the one that dubbed it the Moxie.
I recognized it.
It was
your
my
fans.
followers. So for those that are listening, I'll go ahead and describe it. We're not like that creative where we're like, this is something that nobody else has ever done. We're just like, this was one of our favorite things to do. And people were just, when I'd talk about it in the lives, you would just have people that like jaw on the floor, like, and so they hadn't heard, so they just started calling it the Moxie, and I'm like, oh God. After we've kind of gotten to like the end of our play, whatever we're doing, whatever, you know, form of intimacy we've been taking part in, this is the way that we kind of finish things. My partner has had to get a lot of practice at it, but he is able to stop his climax kind of midway through, which a lot of people, especially those with like a penis, that climax, sometimes it naturally happens for them that like midway through the climax, something happens to distract them right in the center of it. And they almost feel like immediately afterwards afterwards, they could come again. And it's because they almost didn't like get all of it out. And so there's not really a refractory period where there's like a waiting time in between. It's like immediately afterwards and it gets the rest out. So my partner has had a lot of practice with intentionally stopping that and knowing at what point all of the sensation needs to stop, and it'll do it on its own and stop. I am basically down in front of him and he's, manually working the shaft with just himself, and I am focusing orally on like the testicles. As soon as he tells me, or there's like a tap or something, some sort of warning to let me know all sensation, like all stimulation needs to stop, otherwise it'll just be the full thing. So I stop, basically put my mouth over it and catch half of the load in my mouth. I crawl on top of him and finish with him finishing inside me with the rest of it. So there's like half cream pie there. And then meanwhile, I am swapping the semen back and forth with him in between our mouths.
Yeah, this is so much hotter, uncensored.
It's very different to describe it uncensored. I kind of like this.
So he's like got one in the chambers, essentially, because it's half of what
it's
supposed
half
to.
that. Yeah, so it's immediate. I literally climb right on top of him and it's immediately we start again.
Fucking love that.
You don't really have to pick which one you want to do. You can do both.
Someone must have coined the term edging. I'm excited to see how far the word Moxie goes for this, because I'm like, it's like post-edging.
If 30 years from now this is like canon terminology that like nobody remembers who
where
I am or where this came from, but it's just forever referred to as the Moxie. This will be my legacy.
An amazing legacy. Okay. But then the second favorite thing that I had about the video that you made was you very bluntly said, this doesn't need to be your thing. This is our thing. Sometimes non-kinksters or people who are, I try not to say the word vanilla, feel a little bit like, oh, are we being shamed into needing to do more? But even kinksters, there's not pressure, but it's sort of like, oh, push boundaries, go past it. That's how you're cool. And it's like, nope, do what makes you happy and makes it come, or just makes you feel intimate.
It only becomes an issue if it's becoming an issue for you, or if it's causing compatibility issues that one partner wants to try more, explore more, and the other one has no interest in it. It's not an issue until it's an issue. I try to tell people all the time that like kink is not competitive. This isn't like a race to see who can push the boundaries the farthest. Like if it's something you're interested in, by all means. And there are certain acts that those are the ones that I want to push. Impact play. I want to explore how far I can push my body. I want to explore that, but like wax play and fire play, I am aiming for a certain sensation and I just want to sit there because I like that sensation as it is. I'm not interested in pushing the bounds of repetitive injury is burns. Like if I'm going to do anything stupid, it's going to be burning myself somehow. And so like for me, I'm like, not interested, not as fun. I feel like we really quickly approach like, hey, this is a good thing. And then we kind of overshoot it a little bit with kink. You have this environment that's meant to be a area where it is safe to explore. You have negotiations, you have safety measures in place because there's a risk to everything you do, but you learn risk mitigation. So this is a healthy environment to push those bounds if you want to. This would be the time to do it because there's so much negotiation, so much consent, all of the stuff, all of the communication. But I think we got a little lost there and it went from like, this is a safe space for you to do that to if you are gonna be in this space, you need to do that.
And it's such a toxic cycle that I think does happen. And then you have to like remind yourself, no, that's just one random person. It's like usually one bad egg in a larger group. And then
they're usually the most vocal about it. I've even talked to people that would say things like that. And it wasn't until they kind of had a discussion about coercion and like how that comes across that they were like, oh, yeah, you know what? I didn't really realize that's not how I wanted that to come across. I was just trying to like be encouraging to like, you should do this, you should, and more from like a get on with your bad self kind of thing and less of a like you need to, but the tone and the delivery and not communicating well with the other people who are, misunderstanding what you're saying. Like it gets difficult. And I have tried to explain to people like, look, if you were in any other situation and somebody said, you need to be trying, you have to do that. Like, if you're going to do this, then you need to do that. And you kind of convince yourself to try something that you otherwise would not have tried. What is the difference between that and coercion? And when you can't tell me the difference, it's because there's no difference. That is coercion. And you don't want to coerce people into this. Coercion looks for a lot of people like hard manipulation. It can look very blatant and like swept right under the rug like that.
I also think you do such a good job of taking the educator role seriously. Even though it's sort of quote unquote like just on TikTok and it's on the internet and anyone can say whatever they want on the internet, you hold yourself to a very high standard. I think about that a lot when I'm making content too.
I think it helped me that I had been an educator already in this world before getting on TikTok, because all I had up to that point was experiences educating people in person. It was nothing like what I have on here. I would talk to small rooms of people at like dungeons or different clubs or what, people that would host me as a panelist or an educator in with like a whole bunch of other stuff. Or I would work one-on-one with clients or one-on-one with couples that, were seeking out that kind of counseling stuff and like kind of helping them with things. And so I only had that experience of the very small, intimate numbers. Now I collectively talk to over 500,000 people all at one time, like, at any given point, 600,000 people at any given time. And so it never really dawned on me to be anything different, because what I had was that experience of like, if you're standing there in person with somebody, how would you act? I want people to have that experience of that, like very casual, very relaxed, but still taken seriously, that kind of stuff. And it's the same stance that I take on, online is the same stance that I always took in person. Is I do take that role of being an educator seriously. And I don't want to blur the lines of the power dynamics, because I do understand that I hold a lot of power in what I do, because I have so much information, because I have so much experience in it, that I hold a lot of power over a lot of other people who would look to me that I am responsible for being that. And it's the reason that I don't play with anybody who I've ever educated or anybody who I educate. I do not play with anybody that I work with, anything like that. I want a very hard line there, because all I want to do is be the educator. I want to be the like mother figure behind the scenes that like just pushes her little ducklings out the door and is like, and there you go live your best life. Let me know if you need help.
You're not sleeping with your teacher. Your teacher teaches you, and then you go out and like do those things.
Because just like the sleeping with the teacher thing, if I played with somebody who I educated, who obviously, if I'm the educator, they sought information from me. They are the subordinate role in that one of like, you have things I don't have from knowledge. Teach me things. Yeah. Well, if I begin them playing with them, there becomes an ethical line of, am I still being an educator, or am I only educating them to basically groom them into being the perfect play partner for me? That what I teach them would be things that I would like to do and not just teach them what they're asking. And I don't ever want to have somebody think that that line is blurred and have that power dynamic kind of outplay them. I do not want that. I don't want that responsibility.
I think also with that teacher thing, there's looking up to someone. There's a willingness to push past what you want because you want to impress someone or be what you think they expect of you.
I think that's a lot. There's people who I meet, that's how they want to bond with me, is they're like, you obviously are in this lifestyle. You obviously are very comfortable with this subject. This is how I have to interact with you. It's like, you don't, though. That's not how we have to interact. I can still be this person in front of you and not play, not be like a partner to you. I think that's the comfort of people like learning that like, it's all right. I am here to be a friend. I'm here to be that like encouraging voice of like teaching you what you need to know. But like, no, I don't want to have that power over you.
Do you find that people look for it from you? Like seek it out?
And I mean, sometimes it's just people shooting their shot. I'm not shy about what I am. I know I'm a pretty girl. I know what I look like. And I know that there is something appealing about that I have a big personality. I know that there's something appealing about the fact that I'm a pretty girl who talks about sex and a pretty girl who talks about kink. I look appealing to a lot of people, and I fully understand that. So sometimes it's just people shooting their shot because why not? Like, worst thing I can say is no. And if you're respectful about it, I will be respectful right back. You can shoot your shot. It's not going to go anywhere. That's a lot of times, I think. Today on my live, I had somebody ask if I'd ever like molded any part of my body for like toys, like done any of like the pocket pussy stuff. I'm like, nope. I mean, if I ever did, it'd be a cool experience of like, this is super cool. I've never done this before. What an interesting experience. And it would go nowhere. I would just like at home. I would like, ta-da, there she is on the shelf. I don't necessarily want to do that, sell it to other people, not for any reason other than just, I just want to be the educator. I can point you in the direction of so many amazing, wonderful sex workers that would absolutely do that. And those are who you should be going to for that, because that is what they want to do.
100%. You're not looking to mass produce at scale.
Honestly, if I ever have a line of products, I just want a line of products that would be like named after me and it's all just black and white themed. Like that's it. I don't want anything molded after me.
I would be the same. I just want like a killer paddle because I'm a spanko,
Right?
and I
Yeah.
would like something that everyone's like, get that paddle, like get the
That
kink
would be, see,
consultant.
that's the kind of stuff I'd be totally like
Yeah.
down for that kind of stuff. It's the molding of my own body. And part of it is I fully recognize that when you get up to this number of like followers on any sort of social media platform, there are mean people on the internet. And I just don't want to listen to people talk about what my pussy looks like.
No.
I just don't fucking care.
A sentence I never really thought about, but you're right. I too don't want to hear people talk about how my pussy looks.
The only person who it matters to is my partner. They obviously don't care.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to people because also, we've had just that it's the perfect body thing. It's how you think bodies should look. And I just don't want to listen to people talk about my body in any sense because it just is like, I don't want to sign up for that. I'm just here to teach you guys how to do your thing ethically and safely and live your best life.
You have been in the real kink community space. One of the questions I think I get asked the most is how to find a good community.
Good communities are based on good people. You won't have a good community with bad people. In my opinion, it's less important to focus on like, how do I find a good community? And more important to surround yourself in your practices with good people, and you yourself be good people, and it will build that good community. The nice part and the bad part about communities just literally being made up of a bunch of people is that it's literally just made up of a bunch of people. And so you have the good in with the bad, or you have the people that they're not bad people, they just don't vibe together, and like everything in between. You always want to approach everything with a healthy amount of caution, which I tell people like, there seems to be this idea that it's like, when you start adventuring into like the kink community or like going to like events, you want to be really careful because you don't know who's there.
Is a level of risk.
And sometimes a risk is not necessarily like a risk that something could like go wrong in terms of being hurt. It's just like maybe you just don't vibe with this person. And that's a risk that you took, is that like, just see if you vibe together. So to me, it is more important to just be authentic in your practices and ethical in your practices and hold people accountable. If you see somebody or somebody that is practicing in a dangerous or unethical way, or they're making somebody uncomfortable and nobody else is seeing it, but you see it, go tell the host, go bring it up to the host, go say something. You've done your responsibility. You brought it to their attention. They're the host. It's their establishment. The see something, say something thing. And if it's all good and you were missing something, they'll figure that out. But you did the responsible thing. And like, that's just look out for each other. Like, this is why I really like munches. If you're underdressed, everybody's just hanging out. It looks like a book club and you're all in your normal clothing. And yet just by its general presence of being a munch, you know that that's your community. You know that there's already a birds of a feather thing happening here. But you're just really relaxed and just a nice way to have that very laid back conversation. Because then when you do get into the actual kink spaces of like clubs, dungeons, events, whatever, you might see some familiar faces. You'll see the people that you chatted with. And now that ice has already been broken.
I'm like a huge fan of munches and educational events because my advice is always go find your people. My thing is like follow them and find out where they're going because you'll probably find more of your people there.
And educational events are great places to make connections too. Not necessarily like, don't use it as a hunting ground for potential partners, but like finding those people that you're like, obviously all of us are here to learn or to teach. If you show up somewhere and you're like, never mind, this is not what I thought, you can leave.
Yeah, so true. You can leave. Like that is an option. Like this is all knowledge that you've gathered over years of doing this, like in person, on TikTok. How are you bringing this to being an in-house educator for brands?
Definitely not something I ever saw coming. I got picked up by Mr. Pierre Fashion in like the most serendipitous way ever. And he had actually tried to poach me from my job like about 2 months prior to that. And I had to turn him down. And it ended up it worked out perfectly. His partner was actually the one that saw my video about no longer working at the store and was like, oh my God, you need to act fast because she's going to get picked up by someone. Like 2 hours later, I was on board at Mr. Pierre Fashion. They allowed me a space to do what I wanted to do, which was educate people and be able to give education to people that would otherwise not be allowed to get it or not have access to it. I was given the opportunity to be this in-house educator. And it started with that because Mr. Pierre Fashion was catering specifically to the kink crowd. There's a lot of cosplayers, but there were also the nerd to kink pipeline is a real one. So there's a lot of overlap there. But there was, it's like they said, we're custom tailors for porn stars, and kinky people. It was one of those things that because when people would order or go exploring on the website, they already felt like they've got one foot in the door with kink because they're obviously in a kink-centered space, even though it's like a retail setting. Maybe these people will know a good answer to like, hey, how do I find my community? While I'm here, you guys obviously know about kink. How do you pick a safe word? While the employees and the owners and everybody like involved with Mr. Pierre Fashion could answer that because those are easy enough for them to answer being personal practitioners in the lifestyle as well. It started to become obvious that there was value in bringing on an educator rather than saying, sorry, we're just retail. It was like, you know what? People are coming here anyway. We may as well make this a thing. Here's the custom tailoring stuff that we help with. You got an education question. We're going to send you over right to this in-house educator. So then that's where it becomes Shop Quinky that we started is, Mr. Pierre Fashion is just we sell the leather cuffs and the switch necklace. And those are things that we're kind of the third party seller for the people that make them. They just want to make the thing and like, please, you do the selling thing. They had the custom tailoring stuff, which was, their part, the Mr. Pierre Fashion part. They had a lot of their stuff on Etsy. Well, Etsy then sends out the infamous email of you sell adult products. You're no longer going to be allowed to sell those adult products on here. And it went out to them. It went out to like Squidly, who makes a lot of the fantasy, tentacle dildos, things like that. A lot of harness makers, things like that. So anything of an adult, most especially a kink like centered nature, because some of the sex stuff you could kind of maneuver on Etsy because some of it was pro-choice rights, things like that. So it was like shirts with uteruses on them. So it was like not a problem. But they'd look to the kink stuff and be like, no, absolutely not. We're not even gonna negotiate this one. It kind of started us on this, what if there was like an Etsy that was literally just for adult products? And so we kind of started with like, wouldn't that be cool? And then meanwhile, we're watching the deplatforming of sex workers who did a lot of their content through things like OnlyFans or any number of the other websites and would advertise it on places like TikTok. They're not showing anything, but they're very obviously like directing people over to like their website.
Their business.
And they're getting deplatformed left and right on there. And they especially get deplatformed if they try to talk about anything having to do with their rights, like the difference between legalization and decriminalization and things like that. The kink community doesn't exist without sex workers. Like whether or not you are a sex worker or you choose to patron a sex worker, like it doesn't exist without them. And so here we have all these people being deplatformed for selling these products. And now here's all these people being deplatformed for selling a service. Wait a minute. Okay, they're already doing business with each other because these performers are already using these dildos, these harnesses, these clamps, these whatever in their videos. What if we could give them a place to work together where they could just thrive together? And that was kind of the start of Shop Quinky. Coming on board with Mr. Pierre Fashion became part of this as they're building this. And it was what was important to us was the education part of it. We want to equip your kink. So like watching the performers, you discover your kinks. You discover the things that you like or the things that you want to try at home. And then we've got the makers of products. It's like, okay, cool. So you discovered that you definitely liked bondage. Here are some bondage products. Now here's the education on how to pick a safe word. Here's the safety measures. Here's safety scissors. Here's all of the education around how you can practice this as safely as you can, how to navigate the risks, like all of that kind of stuff. So we kind of created this trifecta of crafters, educators, and content creators and, amateur porn stars.
Yeah.
And so it was nice that I was already on board with this because I just slid into the position of being the spokesperson for it. Because I think there's also a validity to it when you have an educator as a spokesperson, that there is a portion of trust that goes into it. Because people that have followed me for any amount of time have already heard me say, I'm not going to lie to you about a product to sell you on it. I don't care if I work for the company or not. Because at my core, I'm an educator. I'm an educator first, an employee of a company second. If I lied to you just to get you to buy a product, I've got you for maybe that one time. I maybe made one sale and you'd never trust me again.
No, that's so true.
Never trust me again. And all for what? One sale? And so I want people to have that kind of trust to here are these crafters that I am fully on board to talk about their products and the safety of their products. And I've seen the quality that they're made. Here are these content creators who I know they're doing this ethically. They're not performing with people who haven't consented, anything like that. And here are these educators. Here's myself, other guest educators who are there to teach things that I not necessarily can teach. I want to have them on there. I want to give people that ability to safely try things at home.
I love it for so many reasons, because to go back to one of your original points, let's not shame people who don't want to go out and learn these things in person.
And it goes back even to the coercion thing about like pressuring people to do things where it's like, well, if you don't feel comfortable going into kink spaces, then why would you even practice kink? It's like, because I don't have to practice kink in kink spaces to practice kink. I can be by myself or just me and my partner in my bedroom. It doesn't even involve the community at large. Why can I not learn how to do this safely?
My thing is, you can't shit on the community either.
Yes.
Just because people are going out to the community. It's that thing. There's no hierarchy here. How you practice and learn about kink, as long as mine is consensual between adults and personally legal where you are, because I want people to be safe. I don't want people to get arrested. Although BDSM is illegal in Vegas where I live. So even I will cop to the hypocrisy of, yes, I let myself get spanked to the point of bruising in a place where it's illegal. But I just want to tell people, like, be aware of what your local laws are. Maybe don't go practice it in a state where you could get arrested, like here.
And you're right about the, you don't have to be part of the community, but you don't shit on it kind of thing. At the same time, if you're in the community and you're very active in the community, don't ostracize people that don't feel comfortable yet. A lot of it is people kind of testing the waters. They're not ready to full-blown jump into the deep end. They want to wade in, and this is them testing the water. And if you make them feel welcome when they test that water, you have set the tone for the rest of their kink practices. That you are like, look, it's all right. You don't have to go in person. I will do my best to educate you this way as much as I can. And that may give them enough knowledge to feel like they can venture into spaces, to feel like they now know how to ask questions and can go to events where they can ask a panel of questions and things like that.
I think Shop Quinky are so lucky to have you, and I know you're part of it, so it's like you're lucky to have yourself, but the following and dedicated followers that you have created by being this authentic version of yourself, I mean, that's the best marketing Shop Quinky can have. It's you have stuck to your guns from the start, like you said, and it pays off because people keep coming back because they know they can trust you. And because of that, now we know we can trust Shop Quinky too.
I'm really lucky in that both of my bosses have repeatedly said the education is what is most important to us on that. Obviously we all got to make our, we got to all make ends meet. We got to pay bills. You do have to sell the products, but they don't restrict me because they see the value in it. I think the nicest compliment I ever got was from Mr. Pierre when somebody else asked him about what it was like working with me, because I have such a big personality, because I have such a big following outside of being their spokesperson and their in-house educator. And his sentence was, I learned a long time ago that you never try to hang on to a rocket or put a saddle on a Mustang. He clicked right off the bat.
I mean, from what it looks like from the outside, has allowed Shop Quinky to even get a larger platform, because we're also excited by I love when I know you're going to meet up with him and there's going to be content about you two being in the same room, like the donut content.
What's really fun is that it's performative in the way that we're just doing funny stuff on camera, but it's not forced. We the camera cuts and we all still go out to eat afterwards. We all still are hanging out afterwards.
So what can we expect? I mean, you're nonstop. I see that on social media. What can we expect in the next 6 months, 9 months? Are you guys still fundraising?
So we are still in the crowdfunding portion, although we're very close. We're now to the point where we have weekly meetings where we touch base on all the stuff that we're doing. What I'm preparing for has now the conversations tilted into okay, so when we launch, you're going to need to do this and this and that. So the conversations are now starting to include a post crowdfunding world, which I'm finally. And we've got interviewing for lead app developers and things like that. For myself, one of the things that we realized is that the Moxie University portion of this, there's no reason that this can't be a go right now. I'm already here. I can already do the thing. And if we had packaged classes that money can go towards the crowdfunding. I could help us get off the ground sooner by giving people those like packaged Moxie University, classes. That's kind of what's going on for me behind the scenes, is that I am preparing different courses that I want to teach that we're going to end up like selling access to as a means of like kind of speeding up the end of the crowdfunding.
So is there a class you're most excited about?
The one that I'm really excited about would be like a communications course. I could have an entire class on negotiations and what negotiations can look like and how to keep your negotiations from feeling very like cold and clinical. Like some people need that. They want it to feel that way so that it is very different from, okay, go time. This is now hit play. And some people need it to feel intimate and raw and like all part of it so that you're kind of in that headspace. And I want to be able to teach that for people. And then there's an entire course to be had on like agreements and, yes, no, maybe lists and, compatibility lists. And then there's communicating in the moment with your partner and afterwards, debriefing. What does that look like? How do you communicate your needs to your partner where you feel like you're being heard and they don't feel like they're being criticized or like picked apart in their performance? I like the idea of a communications course because of how many things can fit under it that are all really centerpieces to like the health of your practices and your, there's a reason we call it RAC, risk aware consensual kink. We already know there's a risk to what you do. I mean, there's a risk to just good old fashioned missionary sex.
Yes.
Like there is a risk to it. That's why they tell you in the Viagra commercials to make sure that you check with your doctor to make sure you're healthy enough for sexual activity. There's a risk to everything you do. And so it becomes a like, how do we help you have the healthiest practice, the most fun? Because in the long run, all that exploring at, all the stuff that you got to get through, it should be fun. It should give you something. It should be this special thing for you that you look fondly on your kink practices, that you feel proud of them because they give you something in life. There's not like courses like, you can't really get certified in kink the way that you can get like certified in sexual education. There are courses you can take that definitely like help with the, especially if you're like going to school for like counseling, things like that. Like there's definitely those courses, but like you're never going to be able to like wave a master's degree in shibari around. Like it just doesn't exist like that. It's built on the backs of the educators and the practitioners that came before you. And the idea of like, got it. Okay, so that's a lesson that I learned. You who's coming up behind me, how do I help you avoid that?
100%. It's been trial by fire. A lot of times it's sort of like we've gone out, we've tried things, we've learned from it. Like we all have to have our own life experiences, but also if I can help you this little bit, the way someone told me, and I've found it's true.
I've talked to so many people that like I've had the same things explained to me by multiple different people. It was just the way that this one person puts it that you're like, oh my God, I get that, made it click. And all the like the little metaphors that you come up with are like the things that you're like, how do I make this connect in your head? Like, the idea of collaring. I often compare it to a wedding ring for people. There are so many people that do not view it as a wedding ring, that they want it separate from the idea of marriage. Totally get that. For the people that are so in the dark about it that they just want some basic information, it's not my intention to like, well, it's not the same as a wedding ring, but I'm like, look, you asked a question. All I'm trying to do is make it click in your head. Because even if it's not for you, it might make you a little more respectful of people who do it because it's not such a foreign concept to you anymore. People fear what they don't understand. And so when you see things like a collar, and we use collars as a term like a dog collar and ownership. And so that kind of rings a little weird for people sometimes of like, I don't know how I feel about that. And instead of somebody meeting them where they're at to try to bring them up step by step and help them understand, they're just like, you won't understand. And it's not people's responsibility to help them understand. As an educator, that is the responsibility I would like to take on. Is I do want to be the person that drops down to meet you where you are and goes, think of this like this kind of bond that you have said that this is this person beyond everything else, beyond everybody else. This person is very special, special in their own way to me, special in a unique way to me. This is not just a partner. This is different. This is deeper. And they kind of, marriage is a concept that people understand. And so they're like, got it. And it gets them just a little further in the door. Because a lot of the ignorance around how people look down at the kink community is rooted in ignorance. It's rooted in not understanding things, or just that you know, it was portrayed in a certain way
That
in like a TV episode and made to be very like, ooh, spooky and like, oh, that it's the bad guy. And so there's like a negative connotation to it. And like, it helps people realize that like, yeah, I'm a kink practitioner. I also am another mom on the freaking PTA. Like,
yeah.
I volunteer with my kids' school and I go on her field trip. I'm just another person in your community. This isn't the only community I belong to. I'm just a person. And so people getting that education, it helps humanize people that like we've already accepted the idea that there are some people that want to get married and there's some people that want to be like live in intimate dedicated partners but never actually get married, and we've totally accepted that concept. But then we get to like the collar, people are like, that's fucking weird. And I'm like, why?
I
How did
know.
we, okay, I'm gonna go back to the beginning and you let me know where I lost you.
And you recently had to do that unrelated to college with CNC.
Many times, so many times. Oh, I will educate on CNC to death.
I appreciate your dedication to the education of it. I feel like recently there were 10 videos of people you were like that poor math teacher who had to make sure every fourth grader understood the math problem. And it was honestly, a labor of love.
There are probably some people that I feel like there's probably a good portion of people who ask questions kind of like almost out of bad faith, like playing the devil's advocate. They're not actually being purposefully obtuse because they just genuinely don't understand it. They're pushing those like, well, what about this? What about this? And it's like, you can go round for round, shot for shot with me, and I'll do that. To everybody else watching, they will see that this practice, when done right, when done ethically, is so solid that I can and will go shot for shot with you.
And that is why I loved it so much and watched every single one of those videos, because it's like, yes, to some of us, it's so freaking clear. It's hard to break it down at that level of how some of the comments were just stupid. But like you went and you broke it down to such a level that you addressed it completely. So it was irrefutable. Like, once again, the consent. It did kill me, though, that people did not understand the consent part of it. The very foundation. It was, So I
and
loved
it's really, and you know, and part of what I hope people get out of it is that, you know, there's the portion of people who are genuinely curious about CNC, whether they wish to practice it or not, that they just curious, just want to understand it. Totally fine. That's literally me as an educator. That's what I took on. I am that person. But what I hope it does for people is help outside of the world of kink, outside of CNC. When you see something that is so heavy on the boundaries because of just the nature of it, that you really need to be clear about what is an act and what is like what's within boundaries, that it makes people realize how good they can be with their boundaries, how standing on business they can be about their boundaries, completely unrelated to that. So many people get taken for a ride by people who like, you know, pulling the strings on their consent a little bit and like making them think that that was actually your idea. Coercion. I'm going to make you think that this was your idea when it actually wasn't. And it's because of the strings that I pulled. And then you look at something like this that is so heavy on those boundaries, so heavy on that negotiation and where those lines are. I'm hoping that people see that and look at everything else and go, this isn't right. I'm not falling for that.
Yes. My hope is that people do feel stronger in their own boundaries and validated in having them, because I think that's like a major struggle that I'm hoping the next generation doesn't deal with as much as, at least I'm a child of the 80s. My boundaries always felt, as long as they don't offend anybody else, like then I can have boundaries.
Saving face. You have to be nice to boys when you turn them down. And it was like, why? I mean, like, not that like my goal is to be rude to people,
but it's also,
I was never told, I'm a bisexual woman. I was never told to be careful about turning women down.
Nope.
Look, I'm not looking to be rude to anybody. If you walk up and you're like, hey, you're just respectful in your approach, I'm respectful right back. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. No, thank you. But like, somebody being weird to you, somebody making you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to like, laugh and placate them. Like, nope.
I've actually put myself in more dangerous positions because of that. Trying to placate people like in my younger years. Thank God it's something that I have done away with. But yeah, the type of education you do around those comments with CNC, it's very much like very clear. This is what a boundary is and it needs to be respected. All right, Moxie, I have had so much fun with you here. I am ecstatic. That is why I keep checking Shop Quinky. I have my secret wrist cuff, the special edition Quinky one with the measuring on it. I am so excited. Cannot wait for this to launch and to see all of your education and to hopefully be shopping dropping on Shop Quinky ASAP. Thank you so much for joining, Moxie. It has been such an honor to have you on. I'm so excited that you agreed to come on.
I'm so happy that you had me on. I'm honored. Thank you.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who might find it interesting. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Email info@thekinkconsultant.com. Until next time, keep on kinking on.